for almost like years, I was sitting around building these small little applications for customers. We were an agency first, right? And I was thinking like, how can I come up with a great new idea? It turns out actually you can found or create meaningful and valuable companies even without having that great moment of genius.
Before we dive into today's episode, I have some exciting news I need to share. If you're a business owner or professional or entrepreneur looking to skyrocket your growth through podcast creation, video production, or public relations support, we've got you covered. Connect with our team at Growth Stack Media. We're here to help you grow faster and more affordably. Visit growthstackmedia.com today to book a free consultation or reach out through our contact details in the show description. We can't wait to help you make your business even more badass. All right, everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Badasses in Tech. Today, I'm joined by Michael Kamleitner, a serial founder and CEO of software-as-a-service companies. He heads up two organizations, Walls.io and SWAT.io, and is an angel investor for a handful of other SaaS companies around the globe. Because of Mike's dedication to helping entrepreneurs in tech grow, we are very lucky to have him on our show. So let's get right into it. Michael, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Summer, for the kind introduction, and hello to all the current and future badasses out there. I'm honored to be here on the call, and hopefully we can kick some ass together.
Oh, I love that energy. That's what we're here for. Michael, let's talk a little bit about what do you think got you started, in such an impressive and very, if I could just kind of go on a limb here, very challenging career path.
Yeah, sure. Let's go a little bit back in memory lane. Actually, I didn't have like this super planned or strategic approach to becoming an entrepreneur and to founding companies. A lot of what has happened in the last 15 years, I would say, was almost like accidental or at least like organic.
Sure.
I used to be a software developer originally, so I was working on classical web development projects for a very long time. And what really initially sparked my taste or my interest in building my own companies was back in 2008. So that's like really long ago. Yes, I'm that old. When Facebook actually launched their first API, their first application programming interface, which allowed developers like me to plug our little applications into the huge Facebook platform. And this is where I got the initial spark of, hey, I can actually build something a little bit more popular, not just little websites I have to promote with money or whatever. I can tap into that social media platforms and build something meaningful. So I think that was really the first point in time where I thought like, yeah, I can actually build my own business.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And I think what you're hitting on is this recognition of something that's already established, or maybe at the time something that was taking off. And instead of going out and, like you said, making something completely net new, you built something that already had a great foundation. So can you talk a little bit about that decision process for some of the entrepreneurs out there now? And I'm bringing this up because, it seems like today there are so many options, so many tools, so many platforms, especially from a social perspective. And I could imagine there's almost maybe a little bit of a flip side to what you went through in terms of, okay, Facebook, that's an easy bet. So today, it's almost like option paralysis. So what are some of the experiences you can share?
Look, I will try to answer the first part of your question because I think you really hit a great point here. How to actually come up with a specific idea on what your company, your software company, your startup actually should be doing. Because I can imagine, or at least it was for me, the case that for almost like years, I was sitting around building these small little applications for customers. We were an agency first, right? And I was thinking like, how can I come up with a great new innovative idea? It turns out actually you can found or create meaningful and valuable companies even without having that great moment of genius where you like come up with something completely new, like you just suggested. So what I did when I decided to come to quit my day job and actually try my own thing, I was at this point, I didn't really know what to do. So I did the next best thing, and I think that is creating an agency. That can be a marketing agency or a communications agency, or in my case, it was a little tiny software agency. And from working for customers and learning from actual customer needs, that was when me and my team actually slowly created the ideas for the products that would later become my companies, Swat.io and Was.io. So there was never this big one moment where we had like the great big idea, but it was a slow process in learning from customer needs and then developing iteratively our product ideas from that. So maybe that I would hope that is helpful for some aspiring founders who are still looking for that great big idea. Don't keep looking and just start working for customers, and the ideas will come eventually.
That's a great piece of advice. And again, kind of going back to the option paralysis, the decision overload, to your point, there is so much to consider and to think about. And maybe what you're suggesting is start small, or if you have an idea, test it with some of those customers, but do your best to prioritize speed, getting it out into the world over having whatever it is on every single channel. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, about the option paralysis, to be honest, that's a little bit harder to answer or give good advice on, because frankly, there is some level or some level of luck involved here to pick the right choices at the right point in time. I guess I was intuitively or just lucky picking social media when it was really super brand new. But if I'm honest with myself or with our listeners, it could have gone the wrong way. Like these days, you could have bet everything on Web3 and crypto. Turns out 1 or 2 years later, that area is not so hot anymore. Maybe even similar with VR, AR. 1 or 2 years, super hot. Nowadays, everything about AI. So there is a level of luck here, a need for luck here as well. But as you said, and maybe that's also like connected to the way you create your company, whether you're looking for funding or going the bootstrapping way, which I did. In this case, of course, it makes absolutely sense to do small steps, iteratively build something, see if you can actually get someone to pay for it, then move on from then. Again, not like planning out the whole thing in advance, but basically learning by doing and going step by step. Because that way we'll never invest too much into one direction, which might turn out to be the wrong one.
Yeah, no, I think that's very validating and reassuring. And you mentioned this journey that you took, the idea that you had compared to what is now today. It didn't just happen overnight. It was a slow process. Can you highlight some of those maybe steps or some of the like key milestones that is part of the journey, especially from that bootstrapping perspective?
Again, I would like to go a little bit back in history. So like I said, we originally started out to be a software agency. So we saw that the social media space is hot and that companies start to look for developers who can accommodate for that, who can build apps on Facebook and other platforms. That was super, super early. Again, no big idea, but let's start an agency and let's try to milk the cow while it was really like a very good area to be in. And then it took like 2 or 3 years of agency work to really, really discover these product ideas. And of course, that was the first really subliminal point on deciding, is this just a little side project that we are doing and maybe it will get us some money later on? Or do we want to go all in immediately and do nothing else? or which is the path that I took, which was a path of like slower transition. So I'll be honest, and I think many people are like that. I'm not super. I'm a bit risk averse, so it was not easy to say like, okay, let's just scratch the agency business, which was paying all our bills immediately. But instead, I said like, okay, let's slowly phase out agency projects, agency revenue, while hopefully being able to ramp up the SaaS, the product revenue at the same time. For me, that turned out just fine, and I know I'm like lucky about that or blessed about that. I think it also goes wrong sometimes, but it was a very smooth transition that way. And yeah, for me, it was the right choice to do it like that. So that was definitely one of the big moments when we decided, okay, this is going to be a product, and we are allocating resources to that product. Swat.io, by the way, that's the first company, the bigger product or the more mature product. We made the decision and like said, okay, to really build the product, we have to make a decision. We have to say like, okay, 1 or 2 developers, we are moving from the agency onto product business. Otherwise, there is no progress. So you need to make this, you can't make it super smooth, the transition. At one point, of course, you have to be jumping into the cold water and allocate resources to the new thing, to the product business.
Yeah.
So that was one crucial point, like this transition from agency business to product business.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure from that, you said it took you maybe 2 years or so, you established some sort of confidence within the service or the product, or that there was something there, but also within yourself, I'm sure that, oh, we really hit the jackpot here. And I think what you're hitting on is an important maybe milestone for listeners out there, is if you're feeling, you can almost feel the momentum when something is working out. And when you feel that, take a minute to pause, reflect, think about some of the options, think about what are the decisions that we need to make from here, and allow yourself to grow. I'm sure in your opinion, maybe in your experience, the I don't have enough resources, or I personally, I'm more of a software, more of a technical kind of mind. I really don't feel comfortable in the business stuff. Like, we almost have a tendency to stifle ourselves and the growth of others. So I want to kind of highlight that point in terms of the importance of really taking a step back and reflecting.
So again, you're hitting a lot of good points here. I think the keyword that you mentioned that lights me up, or that makes click for me, it was confidence. And to be honest, looking back, I mean, I was a first-time founder. Sometimes I call myself an accidental founder, because again, there was no big strategy or plan. So you were right, taking that step back and doing everything to gain that confidence is super important. You also rightly mentioned that it took quite a few years, this journey, like agency, and then it took me again 1 or 2 years to transition from agency to product. I'm not complaining. Again, I'm super lucky that it worked out not just 1 time, but 2 times, because we are running 2 companies now. So I should really not complain, and I don't. But of course, sometimes I wonder, some of these transitions could have happened faster if I had more confidence in myself, in my team, in the product as well. And how to get that, I think that's probably the most difficult question to answer. What I think I mostly lacked back then was a sounding board, a good support network of people who have done it already or are doing it already. So I think that's the only advice I can give for someone who is maybe fighting these issues, these confidence issues, or these imposter syndromes. Can I create a real company? Is to have a sounding board, to have a network of people who are founders, who have been through similar situations and similar decisions, and who can give you some assurance. At least for me, that would have been very helpful. of course, there's also different types of personalities. There's the typical startup founder who is like boasting, full of confidence, who can sell everything, who can raise millions of money with a PowerPoint slide deck. If you are that kind of person, then don't listen to my advice. I'm not, but I think a lot of people are not that person, and hopefully they can relate a little bit to what I said.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And so that you've mentioned was the first 2 years. What would you say was the next step or the next kind of milestone or moment in time that you recognized, okay, this is now, again, taking things up a notch?
Yeah. So again, it was a process, relatively slow process. So we started with the first product, SWOT.io, which is a social media management tool. For those listeners who are into online marketing or marketing in general, it's a typical platform that allows social media marketers to do all the day-to-day work on social media platforms, like community management, content planning, analytics, all that things that need to be done in an efficient way, especially once your brand, your company grows and you have multiple channels to manage. That's where you're using a tool like SWOT.io. So that was the first product, and we were running that with slow but modest success. I remember back then we were thinking like, maybe if we can get 25 customers, that would be so great. Then we had a sustainable business, and then it was like an almost limited vision for what we could be. And then maybe that's another learning that it's sometimes dangerous or easy to limit the vision, your vision. In fact, we now have like 600 or 700 customers, so you can see that it's almost ridiculous to look back at the discussions that we had back then. Now, SWOT.io was growing, slowly growing, and then something happened. Something happened again without big planning, or I again accidentally. I'm using air quotes here. Me and my team, we came up with a second product idea, and I found that so exciting that I couldn't help myself but build a second product. There's this, I'm not sure, there's this saying, or I think there's even a book about startups. I forgot the author. I think the title of the book is Once You're Lucky, Twice You're Good, which I think is a catchy title, but I kind of rephrased that to myself in being in like, once you're lucky, twice you're stupid, because sometimes it felt quite stupid to not just build one but two products in parallel.
Hey everyone, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you haven't already, why don't you take a second to click follow or subscribe on the platform you're tuning into so that you won't miss a second of Badasses in Tech. Also, if you're really loving what you're hearing today, why don't you drop us a 5-star review or leave us a positive comment, as it really helps the podcast grow and helps us continue doing what we're doing, which is helping people become a badass.
Well, a long story short, the second product became Walls.io. This is the second company, the one I'm running currently full-time as a CEO. It's also a B2B SaaS. It's also Bootstrap, and it's also in social media marketing. So I stick to my core skills or core area. Other than SWOT.io, it is focusing on the topic of user-generated content. It's a platform that allows marketers to collect social media content around a certain brand, topic, and event, and then utilize this content for their marketing goals, either by putting it on their websites, on their mobile apps, or on TV screens, wherever you want to use authentic community-generated content to drive your marketing goals. So that's the second company. Again, was created the second product because it wasn't a company back then. And then for a few years, I kind of ran both products under the same company, umbrella company, or the same legal entity. And in hindsight, for too long, because again, I was too hesitant. Maybe is this a side project? Will this be a real company? And it always seemed easier to just keep it in one legal entity. It took me again a few years to realize that actually there's a lot of reasons to spin both products out into their own companies, which then I did, and I guess that was the next big milestone, like basically accepting or granting both products their own independent life as companies, making sure that they both have their dedicated teams, because that's also important for how team members identify with their employer, with their company. They need to rally around one cause, and it was always kind of confusing to have two products in one company. So that was the next big thing, like separating the two companies, having separate teams, and letting both companies, both products find their own unique way.
How did you go about your prioritization? And again, kind of going back to this, this decision tree or the formula of decision making, especially as you are this bootstrapping founder and resources are limited as it is. So can you talk a little bit about the prioritization component of all of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, happy to do so. So I guess it's always hard to create a company from nothing, from scratch. And I think it's even more challenging sometimes when bootstrapping, so you don't get any outside funding, but you basically have to finance every little step forward, every little step of growth, from your own cash flow, really. To be honest, prioritization and finding the right steps was a lot of learning by doing my fair share of mistakes. But basically, I think the key part was investing back really everything that the business, every little bit of profit that the business was able to generate, immediately investing it back as soon as it was possible, hire that next person. Regarding the decision, what is the next important role? That's always super tricky, because we started out to being a team of only software developers, like purely technical people. Obviously, there's something missing here. Somebody has to market and sell a product. Or you might start out with that romantic idea, build it and they will come. Unfortunately, that's never true, or almost never. No, I think it's never true, right? So then you got to make these hard decisions of priority. What is actually the next more important hire you can do, the next more VP or team lead, however you want to call it. And I think that, the real prioritization depends a lot on your company and what's your go-to market. So for example, for Swatio, we were looking at the direct sales model, a very high-touch sales model, where we would do demos, explain the product to customers. We had to do education even back then, because social media was pretty new. So it was clear that we need people to talk to customers, and that meant building a sales team, or at least getting that one first sales manager, who later became my first head of sales. So that was the way I prioritized it, looking at what is what's the absolute most important role required to grow to the next level, so that I can afford the next position, the next role. With Walsio, it was a bit different, because we favored today you would say product-led growth model. So that meant self-service, people coming to our website and buying the product on their own after a free trial. For this model, it made sense to prioritize more the marketing side of things. So we hired an online marketer, and then only later we hired salespeople. So that defines the priority, or the sequence which we or I hired roles into the companies. Yeah.
So how did you learn? Again, you mentioned you have a technical kind of engineering background. What you're describing is, the whole kind of holistic view of a business. You mentioned sales, you mentioned marketing, you mentioned hiring. So how did you kind of go outside of your, let's call it, comfort zone to learn, okay, this, I need to capture this piece, or this is the marketing piece of the puzzle is missing? Like, how did you know? And how did you learn things that you didn't already have an idea about?
Well, it's not so much how did I learn it. Of course, the first step is to realize that you need these functions in any software company, and then it's basically just not being afraid to try something new and to fail. You're right. I introduced myself as a software developer. I wouldn't have used the term software engineer because that sounds a bit more sophisticated and professional. I'm lucky enough to in the end can call myself a universalist, like jack of all trades, not doing really. And I think that's a very beneficial attribute for anybody founding a business, especially if you're a solo founder like me. Then I think it's an absolute, plus bootstrapping, I think then it's an absolute requirement. If for whatever reason you are aspiring to create a company and you would not consider yourself flexible or willing to try out a lot of different areas, then I think the only feasible way to get out of this dilemma is by having a team or one or two solid co-founders who can complement your skills. I prefer to be the former type, like someone who wants to dive into all areas. It also helps me. Of course, I realized, okay, I was a software developer. Then I realized I have to sell this thing. Then I realized I have to do some marketing. I had to do customer support. I had to do basically everything at one point. But of course, I always realized I'm probably, I don't know, not really good at either of these things. So I don't know. I could do a decent job, but it helped me to understand the role, and it helped me to know what the once I've brought in the first professional sales manager, the first professional market, I had a good enough idea to know what to look for in these people. And so for me, it is a very key a key factor to our success, to my personal success, to having been able to try a lot of areas and come to a certain level of understanding before handing over the function to a professional.
That's such a good point. And I think there's 2 points there. One, if you are interested, like you said, of pursuing this path, it's almost a requirement to get some sort of hands-on experience in all areas of a business. And that second point that you described, it makes a lot of sense. And I haven't thought about it in that way. But yeah, very obvious if you think about it. How are you going to know what the role entails, or what the challenges that you might need that person to solve if you don't know kind of what that experience is? So I would say, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. If you have zero, if you've never done it yourself, if you never tried to sell your own product, or if you've never tried to create a Google search ad for your product, how would you be able to find the right person to do it? How would you also be able to judge their performance, which of course is also important, right? So I do completely agree with you. For me, it's really a requirement, and it helps a lot. And absolutely agree.
Very cool. And we're talking also about this kind of generalist approach, this Jack or Jane of all trades kind of persona. Is that, would you say, for those who are in the job market right now, they're either transitioning or they're looking for their next thing, or they're maybe feeling a little stuck right now in entrepreneurial pursuits? Would you say that, it still consists to be that way? Or would you say that maybe it is important to niche down a bit? Because I've heard two perspectives on that.
So I can, since I only can speak from my direct from my experience, I think it's the most promising way to be open and being a universalist, especially if you are only starting your career, maybe in the startup world. I think this is a very good treat to have. it's completely fine to decide otherwise and to decide to go deep on your favorite area. If you want to become the world's best software engineer, that's completely fine. But it's probably not the right way if you fancy founding a company, especially on your own without co-founders. So I'm pretty clear about that. In fact, if I was giving like my younger self advice, if you are interested in running a company or creating your own company and you don't have too much job experience, maybe you just finished university. I would say like one of the best things you can do is find some sort of be an assistant to the CEO of a startup, for example, and you will be able, or you will be forced, I'm afraid, to basically learn and do all kinds of tasks. You will have a chance to dip into your toe into every topic. You will do marketing stuff. You will learn about product management. You can do it for 1 or 2 years. It will be intense, most likely, and hopefully also fairly paid, or at least you should take care for that. And it will be probably the best. You will learn much more probably than in years of university. It's like a real world MBA, or how let's call it, something like that.
Totally. And you alluded to that earlier in terms of the importance of mentorship, the importance of having the exposure and getting that hands-on experience. So as you mentioned a great point, maybe looking for roles where the mentorship is very clearly built into the role. What would you say are some other pieces of advice you have for finding appropriate mentors and kind of knowing the stage that you maybe need to look for?
Yeah. So in this case, it's hard for me to speak from my experience because with one exception, I was basically mentor free, and the one mentor I had is a decade-long friend, so it was not the real choice for me at all. So I was lucky again. The first thing you mentioned, of course, you can look inside the employee-employer relationship. If you have a great manager, a great CEO to work for, and they are willing to take over such kind of role as a mentor, that's like a jackpot, basically. But I guess it doesn't happen too often. What I would recommend is to look for what kind of community events or community groups are happening in your area, in your local area, and in your space. I'm very much like focusing on in-person here. So I think these kind of meetups, startup meetups, and groups like that usually work best when in person and when they are happening regularly. And that's what I would recommend to connect with these like-minded groups and first listen, then contribute, and if you do that regularly, there's a very good chance you might find that someone who you can at one point maybe ask for being your mentor. So basically, be out there and find the right groups of people to connect with. I mean, there's now great tools like Meetup.com where you can easily find local meetups for your area of interest. There's of course. Even in Austria, which is not exactly known for a super vivid startup community, although it's getting better. Even here, there's so many startups events where you can sign up and agree and contribute. So that's the way to go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Just put yourself out there, get involved in the community, find those like-minded people, and you're also proving that it can be done without a mentor. You have proven that 2 times over. So
I want to mention that I did have this one close friend who was in the sort of, if he's listening to that, it would feel terribly wrong not to say like I had no mentor at all. But what I did like, and that's really true at least in the first 5, I don't know, maybe more years, is this group of like-minded individuals who are going through the same, pardon my French, shit. And sometimes it is shit. Sorry to be so clear. There is hard, there's lonely times. There is dark nights when you can't sleep because of whatever problem you are you're working on right now, and starting early to create this network of basically mostly founders, but maybe also other executives. If you're a CMO, a CPO, I think it would apply in the very same way. I'm not just talking about founders. This probably works on many levels. Create this group, people who have done it before, who have been through it before. What you will learn very, very quickly is that 90% of all the problems, all the challenges we share. We always believe maybe we are so unique and we have this one problem nobody else has faced. It's usually not true. Usually, if you talk to people who have done it before, you will find out it's almost the same. Everybody has been through it. And that helps, of course.
Yeah. And you're bringing up a great point. Not only is having that community, having a place or a group of people that you can vent to. You said, it's not, there are some challenges, and how awesome is it to have a group of people that you can just vent to. And right there, I'm sure that alleviates a ton of stress. And I think another point that you're bringing up that I really, what I try to talk about a lot and have all of the guests kind of bring up is, where can you create opportunities for growth for yourself? And, you're talking about, if you're facing a challenge, it's very likely that other people are facing the same challenge. If you're trying to find a group and it doesn't exist, well, go ahead and use that as your indication that, let me create this group. So I think there's something to be said there that, if there are people who are trying to maybe gain the confidence to start their own thing, or they're feeling stuck or maybe a little bored in what they're doing today, something as quote unquote simple as starting a community, well, that might be everything that you need to make that pivot or get that confidence you need to take the next step. So I think that's just a really important point to highlight there of, identifying those opportunities and acting on them to change and to create those communities if it needs to be you. If it's not you, then who else will it be?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very valid point. I mean, again, luckily there's already so much going on, so there's a high chance you will find some relevant people to interface with and to talk to. But you're right, there shouldn't be an excuse. If there's absolutely nothing happening in your town, why not start something on your own?
Absolutely. Agree. Well, Michael, it's been awesome talking with you, and I think some of the steps and some of those milestones and reflections and lessons that you've learned along the way of your career and your journey has been super helpful for those listening. What would you say is next for you? I mean, you reached, and I talked at the beginning, you have your hands in several projects, and you've kind of reached the pinnacle of, CEO, co-founder. So what is next for somebody like you?
So I didn't touch on that yet. To basically like finish the history so far of me or my companies. I did actually 2 years ago make another big step, and that was first recognizing that running two companies in parallel gets you only so far. It puts a lot of stress on you personally, and it basically is unfair, air quotes again, to the businesses to have like a half-time CEO. And that's when I decided to basically replace myself or make myself obsolete, if you like. And with the more mature, bigger company, Swat.io, I found a management team, which now took over the day-to-day operational, like running the company. And of course, still shareholder and super connected to the management team, but I'm not running it anymore, which was another very big milestone for me personally. Why did I do it? Well, of course, also to focus on the second company, on Walls.io, and that's also where I see my future. Of course, it's always hard to predict or to say what happens in 3 years or even further out there. But for the foreseeable time, for the next few years, I'm 110% committed to keep working and building and growing the business with Walls.io. I'm super excited about that still, even after quite a few years. It is, as you probably hear from other founders, other companies, B2B companies, SaaS companies, it is also a challenging time. We had, like, everybody knows that the B2B sales, software sales is slowing down or maybe even stagnating. It's challenging, and I like that. I like challenges. I like to see to make sure to bring my companies through these challenges, and it seems like we're doing a quite good job, because this year will be also a successful year for us. That's why I see my immediate future. You're right. There's other projects I'm involved with. I do this angel investing, I would say, on the side. Again, it's not my main. I'm fully focused on my own company, so this is more like a side hustle. But I'm super interested in it. I really, really love working with teams of founders, with founders usually younger than me, and who come up with their own ideas, and trying to be helpful and give something back to these people as a mentor, as a small ticket investor. I really like that a lot. Sometimes I wish I had more time for it, but realistically, I can only do so much. And for now, that's fine. If I really look into the crystal ball, maybe this part of my professional life, maybe this part extends in the future, if it's possible at all. I would really love that. That's because, yeah, like I said, it's working with startups, working with entrepreneurs is just the most exciting and fun thing that I could ever think of. Yeah, so that's in the future for me. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, Michael. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, doing podcasts like this is a way that you can kind of share your knowledge in an efficient way, right? You're doing kind of one to many right now, so you're already off to that kind of crystal ball goal, and I'm very honored to be a part of that journey, to be a part of that story. So for those listening, and for those who may be interested in following in Michael's footsteps or picking his brain, feel free to look him up on LinkedIn, connect with him on social media. And where else can our listeners find you, Michael, or check out whatever you're up to at the time with Walls.io?
You already nailed it. LinkedIn is my primary social media platform right now. Maybe you can, maybe it's possible to link my profile with the podcast episode, because my surname is, of course, a little bit hard to spell. I will try it anyway. It's Michael, Kamleitner, Kamleitner. But if you look for Walls.io, Walls.io, you can also find me very easily. And if for whatever reason you prefer to shoot me an email, you can do that too, michael@walls.io. And happy to help if I can be helpful in any way. If you want to share something, if you need advice, I would give my best and try to do that.
You've been listening to Badasses in Tech. This original content is brought to you by Growth Stack Media. If you're eager to take your brand or business to the next level through podcast creation, video production, or public relations support, we've got you covered. Visit growthstackmedia.com today to book a free consultation, or feel free to reach out through our contact details listed in the show description. That's all for today, but stay tuned for more exciting episodes on the horizon. Until then, I'm Summer Mitchell, and this is Badasses in Tech.